Good evening and welcome to another episode of What Now Irishman. I just gave myself a little surprise because I uploaded the wrong file and was not expecting that music at all. My conversation partner tonight is a YouTube sensation, and he's recently branched out into other social media formats on Twitter and Facebook. Really interesting guy. You probably all know Mr. Derek Domino. Derek, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Martin. Thanks for inviting me on.
I got caught out there because this is a new studio, and I hadn't played the intro before, and it's the wrong music. But I might keep it. I actually quite like that.
I think it worked rather well.
I like that.
We're off to a good start. Great stuff.
I am going to throw the question at you. There's no quarter given here. What now, Irishman?
What now, indeed? How long have we got, Martin?
All night. I don't have work till 6:30, so I'm okay.
Yeah, look, you know the kind of stuff I do. I try to bring the other side of the reality to many people who would say maybe are customers of RTE, were customers of RTE, are part-time customers of RTE, and by RTE I mean the mainstream media. And I'm just an ordinary lad, you know, an ordinary the man on the Clapham omnibus, I think is the old phrase they used to use. I'm that lad, and I'm just trying myself to make sense of the craziness that's going on, Martin. It's you know, the stuff happening that I never would have imagined I would see, and it's happening now.
When did you start, and what prompted you to we'll say put your face out there?
COVID. Can we say that now, Martin? Is that because for a long time we had to say cool.
Can I? All right. Do you want to do it together? Do you want to say "I told you so" together?
I hate to look. That was a surreal time, but that really. See, I was stuck at home like many people were through no fault of my own, and we were all caught up in this what I would describe as a mass hysteria. And I was on the COVID thing fairly early because I was watching a lot of YouTube back then, and I'd already, you know, been completely red pilled on all the mainstream media and the propaganda, the lies, and the narratives that they spin. So I was seeking my entertainment, if you like, and my news from YouTube mostly, where you can, if you have the time and the will, you can sift through a mountain of stuff. There's no end of stuff there. And eventually you kind of figure out who's who and who's really kind of decent and who knows their stuff or who seems switched on or clued in. And that's kind of what I was doing. So part of that was I was on the COVID thing. They weren't calling it that then. Because, you know, we all saw the videos. I'm sure you did, and many people did, of the people dropping like flies in China. And we thought, wow, this is the zombie apocalypse, if ever I saw one. So I was on this, you know, September, October, fairly early, and I think, wow, if this thing ever gets going, because every now and again, you know, you hear an Ebola outbreak somewhere in the Congo, and you think, wow, that's not good. But it never seems to it always runs out of steam before it gets, say, here. Now, I'm not saying, I think we had a case there not that long ago. But so this thing, you know, didn't stop. And it kept going, and all of a sudden, the whole world was in a shambles. So I was stuck at home, Martin, like many others, and I was watching a lot of YouTube, bit of Netflix. Although I don't really like Netflix much; it's far too woke for me. Usually, I'll start, and 10 minutes into a Netflix program, I have to hit no, I'm out, I'm gone. You've lost me.
It's normally the guy in the dress,
yeah. Look, it's just at this stage it's tiresome. You know what I mean? The white guy's always the villain. The black person can never be bad or evil. The woman is always a girl boss. She don't need no man. She's always stronger than any man, and so I just look. They usually lose me after about 10 minutes if I even bother. And I now just only watch stuff made before 2010, maybe 25. That's because at least there was an air of sanity to all that stuff. So I was stuck at home, Martin. I was watching a lot of YouTube, and because I thought one day, you know what? There's not a lot to that. Any old Egypt could do that, and I'm any old Egypt. So I thought, you know, why not have a crack at it? Just as a something to do type thing, because as you know, we were pretty locked down. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do a whole lot. And that's just the way it was. And we're going a bit stir crazy. So just for the hell of it, I decided, instead of watching a lot of stuff, why don't I try my hand at it and see what happens? I didn't expect anything much to come out of it. I just had a kind of an interest in it. It was just something interesting and new for me to do, because I have no media background or training or journalism background or training. I have none of that, none at all. So for me, it was something completely new and completely different. And I thought, have a go, because when you get to my age, Martin, there's not a lot of new things come at you.
I'm older than I look.
You don't get to do stuff that much. So for me, I found it quite interesting.
And so COVID, my COVID experience was different because I had to work all through COVID. I was subcontracting for healthcare manufacturing. So I worked all through COVID. My life didn't change that much, bar the fact that although I was allowed to still pay tax and work my ass off, I wasn't. I was excluded from society. It was fine as long as I was working and paying my taxes, but outside of that, I was ostracized from society. And through various, I took challenges against employers over face masks, etc., etc. I did a lot of stuff locally in relation to it, tried to wake as many people up as possible. Got banned off every social media platform. Hence, I still have a Getter account, and I think I went to Rumble for YouTube because I was banned from that as well. But yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time. 6 years later, we've all been vindicated. Our government is ignoring the fact that what's going on with Fauci in the States, what all the evidence that has come out. A high-profile doctor just got, Dr. Billy Ralph, has just been dragged to the courts. I'm not sure, has he been struck off or has he just been reprimanded? Or
I didn't follow too closely. I did see it all right. I know that they did do him all right. They did find him guilty. Now I don't think he struck off. I could be wrong on that. Did they not just sanction him in some way?
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I don't know. I didn't follow it too closely.
Are you angry? Are you angry about it?
Am I angry? Look, Martin, there's so much to be angry about. If I was to go down that, if I was to get exercised about stuff and get really het up and angry and fuming, and I'd have lost my reason years ago. Because to do what I do now, I consume a lot of media. I don't mean just RT mainstream media, which I do as well, because I have to research a lot of stuff. But I'm constantly watching stuff flying past me on the Twitter sphere and various YouTube and all that sort of stuff, and I'm seeing so many things that most people don't see because it never gets anywhere. It never gets any oxygen. So I know I don't. If I was to get angry, and I would have so many reasons to get angry, I would never not be angry. I would just be angry all the time, and that would just, and I'd end up in the loony bin. And I don't think there's any left. Did they close all them down? I think I'd end up getting care in the community. Is that the expression?
There's no. I tell you, there's none of that available either. I can guarantee you. The Irish people do not get cared for. They'd probably just find a hole to throw you in. So your format is fantastic, and we spoke off air and we talked about old RT when RT was actually a public service broadcaster, not a propaganda machine, and journalism was very different. The characters on TV were very different. And you're very reminiscent of some of those characters. So it's a case. Look, my parents love you. That's, you know what I mean. So they're in their 70s. Right?
Hello, Martin's parents.
Yeah. So well, my mother's involved. She's been at many protests. Yeah.
Very good.
She used to involve herself in
an old school Irish mammy.
Yeah. The best. It's actually her birthday this weekend. So happy birthday, mammy.
Oh, happy birthday. Well,
yeah. The mammy, as we call her. Yeah. So, and let's talk about parents. Let's talk about growing up. Tell me about you. How did you grow up? Where did you grow up? Who gave you your moral compass?
Well, look, I come from McCulchie, number one. Martin McCulchie. Do you remember that? That used to be the big divide, the
Yeah.
Culchies and the Dubs. And yeah, so I'm a Culchie from the northeast. I'm not too far from the border. That's where I grew up. Very, very typical old school Irish childhood. I'm the eldest of the family of five. And, you know, father worked. My mother was a homemaker and she ran there was a great, this is a thing that's really lost now. And I think it's tragic that it is. There was such a great, you know, working
Dynamic.
together.
Yeah.
The dynamic was
Mhm.
really, really good. And from a
Yeah.
child's point of view, you wanted for nothing. Now, we weren't rich. We weren't poor. We weren't rich. So it was a kind of a middle of the road type thing. The community school is where I ended up. Remember community schools?
Mhm.
So, and early years, I was in a boys' school because in my town there was a boys' school and a girls' school. Imagine there was that many kids. They could have a boys' school and a girls' school. So for the first younger years, I was with boys, which I think now, in retrospect, didn't think anything of it at the time. But in retrospect, I think it was a pretty good model, Martin, because you kind of boys are rambunctious. They're leaping about the place and they're banging stuff and hitting each other and all that. And then I went into secondary school, which was mixed. So again, a totally different dynamic, and did that. And so I had a very, very, you might say, typical 1970s, 80s upbringing. And so my moral compass, and I suppose my North Star in how I view the world, comes from that. And, my family was very, very typical of most families I knew, to be honest. Most, some had more kids, less kids, but essentially, no matter which friend you went to see or visit or whose party it was, kids' parties, whose birthday party you went to, it was a kind of another version of my home or your home or somebody else's home. There was always a mammy there, and there was a clatter of kids. There might be someone in a pram, and then the father would come in from work or whatever at whatever time. That was the general dynamic. And as I said, we didn't think anything of it, Martin, at the time, because I think we assumed it would just be always that, except with fancier cars and maybe better televisions or something, But none of us, I think, had any idea where the whole project was going to go and how crazy it was going to get. So that's where my foundation is there, from what I would consider to be the typical middle of the road mainstream Irish setup, as it was. So, watching the Late Late Show and watching Hall's Pictorial and the news at 6,
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff that everybody did. Glen Rowe on a Sunday night meant you were late doing your homework. That was it. The weekend was over. All that old stuff that we just took for granted. And
Wasn't
even
it fantastic?
it was, looking back at it, Martin, and people think, and it really does annoy me, and I push back on it any time I can, because there's the people who have managed to get into power now, they just spend all their time and efforts, poo-pooing that time, and saying it was dark days, there were terrible days, there were misogynist days, there was all no, I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not rose-tinted glasses here, but it wasn't any of the things that they are saying now. This narrative that's being pushed, it was none of those things, and I know because I was there. I lived it.
Same as you've described my upbringing. I grew up rural. Same thing. Father went out to work. I actually had, part of the reason I'm also involved in this, I had the luck and ability to actually raise my family exactly the same way. I was the dad who went out to work. My lovely partner got to stay at home. All my kids never went into bar when we started off the first one. I think there was 2 years of childcare. And then I just said, never again. I'm never dropping a crying child off to a stranger ever, ever, ever again. And did we struggle? Did we have money for, like you said, the new car and the new holidays and the TVs? No, we didn't. We just had a nice, simple, middle of the road life. And I've raised 3 fantastic adults that are functioning society, that are the ability to critically think. They're different from a lot of the people that surround them. They've way more confidence. They're way stronger in their heart and in their heads and what they believe. And it's mom being at home or dad being at home. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's so important for young people. We wouldn't have half the social issues we have with youth today if mom or dad could stay at home. But isn't it the point? Isn't it destroy the nuclear family? Isn't that who's behind it?
Well, that's a very, very big question. And I think at the end of the day, having thought about it as I do, and look, I'm no towering intellectual. I just try and figure stuff out in a 2 + 2 = 4 way. That's kind of my thing. And as in so many things, Martin, I think it comes down to money, really. I think it comes down to money, as most things do. You know, they say money is the root of all evil. And I'm a capitalist. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I'm very much of the capitalist mindset, you know. But I think that money drove everything. And in Ireland today, money is driving everything. We are all now just slaves to the economy. It's the economy, stupid, as Bill Clinton famously said. Never a truer phrase was uttered, because whilst every country and every nation needs an economy, needs a good economy, you know, the better the economy, the, you know, happier usually people are. But at some point, I think that tips over into a fanatical worship of the economy. And so, in simple terms, I think women were put out to work. That was a conscious decision. And what I think, this is just my own, you know, 2 cents worth. I think the industrialists, the business people, the people who make all the money, I think they needed more cheap labor. They needed more labor and cheap labor. And so they figured, well, look, they were looking at what they did in the Second World War, especially the Russians and the Brits, you know, putting people into factories, making stuff, women into factories. And they thought, well, that's a great plan. Why don't we just do a load of that? And then we could double the workforce, and that would keep wages down. And then they, of course, went to the government and said, listen, we've got a great plan here. And the thing for you is, the great benefit for you is you get a lot more tax. You know, you're going to get a lot more money. You're going to make money out of this. It's a great deal. Because when a woman is at home having kids, minding and raising kids, well, she's not a PAYE worker. She's just, you know, consuming your money. She's not paying you anything, which is true. But she's doing a far, far more important job, as anybody with an ounce of sense knows, and a much harder job in many ways. So governments don't think about that. They think in 5-year bursts and short-termism. And they think, wow, imagine all the women going out to work, then suddenly we could be taxing them instead of them sitting at home, you know, minding kids and doing dishes and making dinners. We could actually make a fortune out of this. So the industrialists and the government said, both got on board. This is again my theory. Got on board with this great plan. And what they needed was somebody to sell it. So then they got in the feminists, the wackos, the loonies. You know, I'm not talking about the ordinary family. I'm not talking about the people who just wanted to vote and equality. I'm not talking about that. That was fine. I think we all bought into that bit. But no, they got the radicals, the absolute loopers, you know, of the second and third wave feminists, who wanted women to essentially become men, as far as I'm concerned. So they got them in and said, listen, girls, we want to get women out of the home. This patriarch is a terrible thing. And of course, you only had to wind these crazies up and point them in the right direction. And they went out and did all the PR. They sold it to women. They sold it to the sisterhood. But I think they were the patsies. I think they were the useful idiots. Because women are more unhappy now than they were back in the 1950s. And it's going down and has been going down every decade. So I think these Looney Tunes feminists sold women a bad deal. They sold them a pup. And it was at the behest of the people behind them, egging them on, which was the government, who wanted to turn women into wage slaves, and the industrialists who saw a whole new shot in the arm, a whole new adrenaline burst of new labor, which they did get. So essentially wages halved. Not in monetary, but in terms of...
I know what you're saying. And
that was the plan. But there was no kids. Now
the
there's no
viewers
kids.
the viewers will understand that. Well, that's the joke I make about woke in general and feminists in general, is that technically we can actually wait them out because they're all going to be dead in 50 years and they don't procreate. So if you want to play a long game, you can take that approach. So feminism you can look at it different ways. I know people who say that feminism is a Marxist construct, or a social Marxism construct, and that Marxism is the ultimate chameleon, that it never went away and it's constantly changing and infecting. I know people who think that the CIA created feminism and these concepts. I know people who will blame it on the Jews. I know people who will blame it on other influences. Wherever it came from, there's many evils in the world, and there's many layers, and unfortunately there is no one big bad guy sitting in a chair with a white cat. It's layers and layers and layers of systems. The only thing I'm concerned about is how do we combat it? How do we right now the government is pushing out this agenda, the manosphere, and I can't remember the term for the stay-at-home man, but they're really turning the screw out of maliciousness because they lost the referendum. They've still pressed ahead with the agenda. Nothing changed. They just couldn't change the constitution and the legislation. They're still pushing ahead with the program. How do we combat that? My kids are weird. I'm not going to have any more kids or anything like that. I presume you're in the same boat. You're not going to start having a family yet. How do we encourage young men and women and explain to them that the right thing to do is find your partner when you're young, have a load of kids, and build a beautiful life for yourself, and just ignore whatever the state says?
Well, that's a massive question, and again, it's something I do think about, because we are going extinct. I don't mean just the human race. Certainly, the Irish people are going extinct. There's no children,
absolutely,
no kids. Mm-hmm. It's just the facts. It's no.
Yep.
You don't even have to. You don't have to blow that one up. That just is what it is. And that's because we've created a society that I think doesn't work. It doesn't fundamentally work as a society. The nuclear family was always the cornerstone of a functioning society. Well, this is not new knowledge. This has been going on for millennia. Mm-hmm. And it was the reason that it lasted for millennia was because it worked as well. It's better than everything else. It was the best plan that we could come up with. And we took a wrecking ball to that there fairly recently. Again, as I believe, for money, essentially at the end of the day. The people who wanted to make money did make money, and a lot of them are gone. They don't care. It doesn't affect them. And the government ministers who went along with it, they're long gone out of power. It doesn't affect them either. And unfortunately, we don't have people thinking in societal terms, as in what leaders used to do and what kings used to do, queens, if you think of it that way. They were worried about their lineage. So they didn't want to kind of crap all over the kingdom and then their son or daughter inherits this shithole. They had to think a bit more long term. Now, I don't want us to go back to royalty, but what I'm saying is we now have a political system that is all short term. They're being led, propped up by the industrial type people, megacorps, who just want to squeeze every last cent out of it. And then on top of that, we have the screwballs who are the ones you see on telly, and the NGOs and all that mad. And what's gone out of the whole equation is common sense, Martin. It's just common sense. And I think that's why people tune into to me, because I just try and give old school common sense. I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything. I'm just looking at something and trying to give just a normal take on the thing. This is what I think is happening. This is what's going on. This is the bit that you're not being told, because that's often how they do it. They're not telling you the stuff. How do we fix it? Well, this rot has really gone deep. I mean, the rot is really, really deep in terms of the institutions. I know many people will have heard of the Long March through the institutions. We're at the end of the Long March now. It's infected everywhere. It's a Herculean task to fix it. And in essence, I think most people will do whatever's cool. Whatever's the cool thing to do, they'll do it. And what they did was they purposely made getting married, having kids, having a family, all that, they made that absolutely uncool. It was the most uncool thing ever. That's what they did through movies, through TV, through radio, through talking heads, people you see on the telly, everything. Everything was just, dissing that whole way of life. And people don't want to do stuff that's uncool. They want to do cool stuff. So women wanted to talk being a girl boss, like Sex in the City, all this handbag stuff and working in office and cubicles and, doing emails all day and all that. They thought, well, that's the coolest thing I could possibly be doing, which is absolutely the opposite of what it is. It's the worst thing you could be doing, at that stage in your life. But they were sold this. And how do we fix it? Well, we'll only fix it when and if we can manage to make the plan that actually works for society cool again. If we could make that cool again through messaging, through media, through just generally what people do and what people are rewarded for doing, then people would just do it because it's the cool thing to do. At the moment, it's the uncool thing to do. And you saw that play out, just as you said there, a few days ago, where Norma Foley came out and announced this whole, we have to tackle the manosphere nonsense. We can't have men saying, oh, women, get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich, which is absolute rubbish. Nobody was saying that. But
I said, sorry now, interrupt you. My microphone fell over while we were talking to Student Bird. Yeah, I just see it leaning there. It's gonna go.
Microphone, is it held up with coat hangers, Martin? What do you got going on over there?
Yes, you know yourself now. A bit of gaffer tape. There we go. That sorted. This is the great thing about doing this. No edits. Yeah, everybody gets to see it.
Give it a belt of a hammer. That usually sorts it out.
No, just still going. I'm lucky I'm not the type that
you could always hold it like Freddie Mercury. You could try. You could do that one. Do you remember that mic he used to have?
I'm a big Freddie fan now. I like a bit of Queen. Now that should do it, and we hope it doesn't get. Apologies about that, people. This is how unprofessional I am. And the other great thing is that, like I said, I've done interviews where people have walked in. I've done interviews where I just let it go. It's human life. It's human life. We're not putting out, or I'm not putting out a polished product, you know what I mean, for clicks and likes and sales or anything like that. I'm just showing you this is actually how life works. Sometimes things go wrong.
I think people just like realism, Martin. They just like honesty and realism. Just
if I was okay, so I'm going to say some words to you, and I kind of want to know what you're feeling here. So we talked about we have to make something cool again. So I like the idea of, I do a lot of research as well, and I look into things and stuff like that, and I've done a lot of work on what the government uses on us. Which are nudge units, massive propaganda campaigns, massive censorship programs, etc., etc., etc. All state sanctioned, all funded, all for the greater good. Why aren't we using the same tactics?
We're too disjointed. Number one, that's a thing, and they're intent on keeping us that way, as far as I can see. You see, you have to remember, we're up against some very, very clever people, Martin. Mm-hmm. These are not idiots. These are very, very clever people. Yep. And, and I don't mean quite often the people you see on the telly. I don't mind them. It's the people behind them are the clever people. The people you might see or hear, they're often just kind of playing a part, saying what they're told to say or towing a certain line. They just get paid. It's a gig. But it's the people behind them who do the planning and the plotting and decide things. That's the people we're up against, and they are very smart people, and they can afford to pay other smart people to help them, because they have all the money, they've got control of the institutions, they essentially have their hands on all. They've managed to amass an amount of power that Stalin could have only dreamt of through technology and through taking over all the arms of the state, right from the school system, right on up through the institutions. So how do you fight against that? Well, you do your channel, I do my channel. We put out our own stuff. We're small voices, just hacking away, doing what we can. But we really, we're up against a behemoth. And how do you beat that? Well, you can't beat it in a straight battle. You can't. Just like back in the days of our glorious fight for independence, they they realised they couldn't take on the British Army ever. It was just a non-starter. So they had to find other ways, which they did do, and they achieved what they set out. So it can be done. It's not impossible, but it can be done. I think we need to try and get virality. The one thing that this behemoth, with all its power and all its influence and all its money, the one thing it cannot guard against, Martin, is virality. Something goes viral. it does. It's gone. The genie is just out of the lamp, and no amount of money or spin, or professional or clever people can stop it. So that's, to my mind, the only weapon we kind of have, and that's a very tricky weapon, because how do you make something go viral? You can't really. Yeah. You really can't. You'd love to. Actually, if I could discover the secret sauce of that, I'd be a rich man. But that's the only. They have every other thing guarded, Martin. Every other possible route of attack. They've got machine gun nests there, waiting for somebody to put their head up, and it'll be mown down. So it's a huge task, and it's made even more. I suppose I don't want to be Mr. Depression here. We don't have a lot of time to figure this out, Martin. Mm-hmm. We don't. As you say, yeah, the woke tards will essentially just go extinct. That's just, that's their lifestyle choice, and let them at it, I say. But we don't have time to wait 40 or 50 years for that nonsense to play out. We simply don't. That's the other problem. So our problem is we're up against a massive beast, massive dragon, that is absolutely ruthless if it feels it's under attack. And second of all, time is short. Time is very short.
Have you still faith in the political route? That's probably the best way I can put it.
As it stands, no. As it's constituted here now, in terms of how the makeup and the way it works here, no, I don't. I'm sorry, I just don't.
No, I'm like I said, I actually agree with you 100%. But I'll use all weapons, and you, like you said, you have to keep hacking away.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I would use politics as a disruption tool more than anything else. You're never getting Dáil Éireann back. Most likely, Dáil Éireann will switch to a far left government, Sinn Féin, People Before Profit, Soc Dems, at some point. And I don't think we ever recover from that. What will happen is, after 4 to 8 years of absolute disastrous policy, people will just put back on their Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael glasses and say, actually, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Oh, let's put them back in. Look, politics, the opposition is 100-year plus head start on us. So it is, why don't we have a leader? You've got Rupert Lowe over in the UK, regardless of what people think of Trump, you still have him. He became this polarizing, iconic figure that resonated with more than 50% of the citizens. You do have characters you've them in France, you've them in Italy, that have been able to, even Germany, that have been able to galvanize all of the fractured little elements and sub-parties and micro-parties and ideas and put them all under one concept, one idea. Why have we not been capable of doing that so far?
Well, I'm not in that game, although I do obviously spend a lot of time watching and observing it and what, trying to figure out what's going on. And I've never been in politics, never been a member of a party or affiliated with a party. So I'm kind of an outsider in that sense. But to answer your question, there's a few things that I see. Number one, it's hugely fractured. And there's a lot of personalities who are they all want to be the next Michael Collins. And okay, look, as you say, why can't we get a Michael Collins now? Number one, we make a Michael Collins or a female equivalent of Michael Collins may be out there in the ether, but just hasn't surfaced yet. Maybe they're not out there in the ether because, we don't make them like we used to, as they say. And the second point is, anybody who puts their head up above the parapet now, Martin, is going to get shellacked into oblivion. Absolutely hammered. So not a lot of people want to take that on, for a start. And number two, there's such a stranglehold now on mainstream media that a Michael Collins couldn't get anywhere now today in politics. He couldn't. He absolutely could not get off first base. He would be taken asunder. If it wasn't his opponents politically, it would be the feminists. They would have him absolutely beaten into oblivion, and he'd be labeled as this and that. And you know how the game is played. And with the way media is and social media is now, and the print media, who are all essentially just offshoots of the government now.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't mind somebody out there howling at the moon. The government's fine with that. And it also gives a veneer of, look, shall we allow all these headbangers to say their thing and do their thing and go around shouting or proclaiming this or that. They're okay with that. There's no threat to them. No threat at all. They don't see that as a threat. And the clever people, as I say, behind them don't see that as a threat. In fact, they probably see it as a bonus because it gives a veneer of a functioning system. But if any of those characters started to get a head of steam, let's say, going back to my point about virality, if any of those characters managed to somehow go viral and started breaking through the firewall of the mainstream media, maybe they just, I don't know, did something or said something or whatever. You know how these things work. They come out of nowhere. And the defenses didn't work against that. And they managed to start making inroads into RTE land, the RTE people, the voting people, the over 50s, the people who go out and vote. Suddenly they started thinking, you know what, that person there seems to kind of have, a lot of good things to say. Maybe it's worth listening. Then that person would be absolutely nuked from orbit, Martin, nuked from orbit 24/7 on all of the media. They would be just incessant to make sure the public, to instill in the public mind how toxic that person is, how bad that person is. If you get all the usual tropes, Nazi, fascist, bigot, racist, everything would be thrown at that wall. Everything. So
I've actually experienced this because there's a wonderful reporter. Hi, Debbie McCann of the Mail on Sunday. Yeah, she's she whenever she's got nothing to write about, I somehow end up in the paper as being X, Y, and Z. And colleagues of mine, it's happened to colleagues of mine. Actually, the state went so far to something we built. They got EU law through Commissioner Mann, EU law to shut down our website. They couldn't do it with Irish laws. They actually used French law. So look, I understand this exists. So why not build somebody? Why not build somebody bigger than? I have this thing about creating and using the tools of the enemy. I understand that the brains of the operation isn't out front. You and me are not the brains of the operation. We're sitting there doing our podcast and having our little chat and conversation, stuff like that. Brains of the operation are nameless, faceless, this, that, and the other. They're handing out a bit of paper out of the smoky room. Do this. It'll be a little bit different now. You'll have bot farms and you'll have IT people and you'll have marketing people and stuff like that. I still can't get my head around the fact that we don't have that built. We're 6, maybe 8 years in to this. And I talk about this all the time. I don't have the funds to do it. I just don't. I'm not a wealthy man, nor will I take money off somebody to do it. People have offered money and stuff like that, but I'm not. Show me how you earned it, and then I will take your assistance. But it baffles me that we haven't done this. That our propaganda game should be massive. I can think of one character that would play the role of the villain to go up against the state, and it'd be perfect. It would be so disruptive. It would be, you could sell it to youth. You could, but I suppose people need to accept, in my opinion, that we need to take the gloves off and start really being nasty about this. If we want to survive, that's all I care about. My genetic I want my genetics to exist in this land in 1,000 years' time. That's not selfish. And that's all I care about. I don't care about the short game, the medium game. I want to still be here in a millennia, as my ancestors were a millennia ago. We need to be nasty, and nobody seems to be willing to accept that we. And I don't mean lads blowing stuff up or guns or storming the door. None of that's going to happen. We don't live in that society anymore. I mean, using the tools we have. We have a beautiful propaganda machine. The internet is forever. Why aren't we targeting maliciously politicians, civil servants, anybody who's causing harm to our people? Is that our moral compass just won't allow us, or is it we've been reared to be better than that, and it's kind of it's alien to us to think like that and do that?
No, I don't think so. I criticize the government and politicians constantly, because they deserve to be criticized, and their policies deserve to be criticized, and there's so much lunacy being shoved in our faces that they should be, and I mock and ridicule them, Martin. That's what I do. That's my weapon. Whenever I can use it, I mock and ridicule them. I Frank Hall them. I Scrap Saturday them. I make fun of them. And that's my weapon of choice whenever I can deploy it. Now I do criticize fire and brimstone too, but if I can find an angle on them, I will rip the what out of them and make them look like what they are. Idiotic, and their policies are idiotic, and that madness that came out the other day with Norma Foley about the manosphere, absolute lunacy, and and put out there as a full-on document. And then a few days later we had Dr. Eben Joseph, an old friend of my channel, she came out with this absolute wallocks, and again I laced into that. She's never ever touched by the mainstream media. It's left to people like me and maybe you and various other people. I go in there with hobnail boots, because that's the you have to. But the problem is, Mark, we're too small of voices. We don't have the platform. Like
you. Okay, so but you have. Boss, you've just shy of 100,000 subscribers. I think you're due one of the play buttons soon or something like that. Did you get one of those at 100,000?
I believe you do. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my fancy plaque. I don't think it makes a huge difference to my life though.
But has anybody from mainstream media ever contacted you in relation to having a conversation with you, having an interview, asking about your channel, or anybody from the mainstream media ever?
Never.
I see you get fact checked a bit, all right, by the fact checkers from the urinal. That's the journal for anybody who doesn't know what the urinal is. Funded by Commissioner Mann.
That really hurts me, when they fact that really, the journal criticizing me, that cuts deep. That cuts.
But isn't it amazing? But the reality is, it affects your reach. It does. Well. It mightn't personally hurt you, but it affects the reach of what you're trying to do, and they're using essentially lawfare against you to limit your reach. That would not sit well with me. I have this big thing about more than anything censorship. It drives me absolutely nuts. I don't mind that the communists and the Marxists, who I despise, are allowed to say what they say because it is their right to say it. My enemy is allowed to talk as well. I've no issue with that. I ask so many of them for debate, come on and have a conversation with me. I mean, many of them, and nobody's ever. I get a couple of responses, all right, and stuff like that, but none of them will actually do it. None of them will actually sit down and have a conversation like this. But they're entitled to free speech as well, and nobody has all the answers, and nobody is 100% right. Some are just more bonkers than others. But in relation to like censorship, like maliciously, you could be shut down tomorrow.
Oh, I know.
By the state.
Yeah. And I firmly believe, Martin, if ever I got too popular or too I was hitting, too many raw nerves, I'm fully convinced a phone call will be made. I'm fully convinced of that, because the alternative media game is as you saw through the COVID years, channels were dropping like flies. They were just disappearing. Every other day I'd go to look at somebody and they'd be, this channel doesn't exist. That's it. They can flick a switch and you're gone. And it doesn't matter. It wasn't all small channels. Big channels got nuked. So if push comes to shove, and I'm very aware of this, and I don't, I just take this as a reality. If any channel of any size in Ireland got out of its box or started hitting too many home runs, then they would switch. They would have it switched off on some spurious, reason. And they don't even need to give you a reason. If they can just say, listen, you breached our terms of service, and that could mean anything. That's essentially all you get. What it means, who knows? You can't really. There's no appeal. Oh, there is an appeal. Like tick box if you want to appeal. You tick the box. Your appeal was refused. So it's no. I think it's a very much a rigged game, Martin. And free speech only exists insofar as it doesn't affect anything. They don't mind me or you and people like us kind of doing our thing over there in the corner, as long as it doesn't affect the adults, But as soon as if we started kicking the shins of the adults a bit too much, I think they'd suddenly swat us like flies. And they could do it very, very easily. They could my channel could be gone any day. I could just wake up one day, try to log on, and I can't log on. That's how
let's talk about solutions. So I've seen you speak in person at Misha. I've seen you on the stage with a microphone in your hand. You're kind of emceeing the gig, kind of thing. I also did. I would have used Spaces on X quite a bit and been a contributor to some of the big Spaces over the years. But I went to an island in the middle of the country over the summer, and we did something that we'd kind of forgotten you could still do. We did a space with no phones, with just a crowd of people who decided to meet in a certain part of the country, get in a boat, go to an island, and sit around and have a kind of a roundtable discussion out in nature. Absolutely fantastic event, fantastic day. Should we be doing more of that? Should we be going to the local village hall and renting it out as a collective of people who just say, look, we're going to have a talk. We're going to get somebody local from the community. We're going to get. You probably don't like the idea of being a celebrity, but you're a bit of a celebrity, like, you know what I mean. We usually draw one or two other speakers, and basically then just take submissions from the from the audience, kind of thing, and just have a bit of a natter for 3 or 4 hours and a cup of tea and a sandwich at the end of it. Are we missing a beat by spending too much time? Look, reach is reach. It's great to be able to talk to loads of people and perhaps get an international audience, but should we be more local as well? You know what I mean? Is this something Misha was 2 I've been to, and I'm really looking forward to one in September. They are fantastic. They are
absolutely fabulous. And as you say, there's one coming up now very soon, and I will be there again doing my bit.
Excellent.
And loving every minute of it, and I can't wait to see all the usual. You start to get recognise people, because they keep coming and you get to know them, and they're brilliant. Salt of the earth people go to that. Absolutely, the best people fun. You could possibly meet are all there.
But everybody's there from every walk of the gang or club or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Anybody nationalist, whatever. Everybody from centre all the way over to far right is there, and everybody just natters and chats and converses, and the talks are fantastic. And I always drink too much, but
see, that's what happens, Martin, when common sense people come together. You can have differences of opinion, you can have differences of ideas about how to achieve a goal and whatever. But when common sense people, old school, as you used to be able to go into any Irish pub in this land and sit at the bar with a lad who supported the other team or whatever it might be, and you could hash it out all night. And then, just you went about your way, and you might have even learned something, that you didn't know. So, yes, that is lost. As to the parish thing, there is some merit in that. How you, again, it's a question of reaching people, and then you see what they do is they poison the well, Martin, and you could book the parish hall at Kilchimock or whatever, And like you saw with Michera the first time they
yeah.
ran it over, in Drumshambo,
Yeah.
they were absolutely nuked for no reason at all. Because this crusty brigade, the woke brigade, who are, let's just say, smiled on benevolently by certain, powerful forces. They're the shock troops, if you like. They would be on your back everywhere you would go, Martin. And as you say, as Misha Era was, it could be that type of event. It could be speakers there. It could be an open mic type thing. It could be questions, and it could be cups of tea and buns after and a sandwich. Great night, an old school Irish event. Events that we used to have till yesterday. But if you tried to do that now, Martin, the crusties would get under it straight away. Especially once they'd find out who was going to be there. I'm probably at this stage, I don't know, I'm probably some kind of far right fascist adjacent. I don't know what the hell. But that's it doesn't matter what you are. It's what they'll say you are. So, and then they'd turn up with their placards, the pink-haired, blue-haired lunatics. They'd be there with the placards. And Mrs. Maguire, who's 68, doesn't want to, give up her bingo night to try and break through a cordon of crusties shouting at her and spitting at her. So that's, unfortunately, that's kind of where we'd be at. I think it's a good idea in essence, but I think in reality, that's probably how it would play out. And because these people, Martin, as far as I can, do any of them work? These crazies?
Well,
they seem
do
to have a lot of time for protest.
They work for NGOs, so they don't actually work, but they're being paid. So yeah, there's a lot of government funding going into these people being bussed around the country. I love that they always say that we bus people around, but the reality is we have the pot to piss into. We
haven't got the price of it. Price of it.
Yeah. So it is. So I don't accept personally that is right. That I couldn't call an event in the village here because the far left, and you have to remember, Antifa cost me my career. They emailed every single managing director globally to the company I worked for to say I was the bad right kind of thing. And oh my God, they dragged me over the coals. But what I found is after all that was done and dusted, and I took what I took off them because they were bold and they don't know how to do paperwork properly, and I'm smarter than you and just don't do it. They got so many options to get out. I've been able to exit society. So it's great. I work with my hands. No one can touch me. I am completely free. I can say what I want. I can do what I want. Nobody can get to me. The state can't get to me. The state doesn't even know where I live. It's documents don't match to where I am. I'm fine. I'm grand. I'm able to say the things I say because I live the life. I don't consume. I don't buy things. My microphone is broken. I'm not buying a new one. My microphone stand. It's as simple as that. I'm going to repair it. And that's it. I do not consume. I give the state nothing. I give big business nothing. I shop locally, and that's pretty much it. Very, very simple life. All my money stays in the village I live in. None of it goes out, bar just your life insurance and your car insurance, the bits and bobs that you have to have. I'm always encouraging people to do that. I'm always encouraging people to don't use the foreign businesses, don't use the kebab shops, don't use the vape shops, don't use the. Collectively, we have huge power economically, but people are reluctant to give up the small luxuries, so to speak. Would you have any thoughts on that, or is it something effective? Is it a waste of time? Is it?
No, look, I'm a firm believer in try everything. That's I would never look if a thing sounds in any way plausible or feasible. I'd say, yeah, try it, run it up the flagpole, see what happens. Maybe it'll, because it's very often the thing you don't think it'll work that works. I found, the thing that you least, like I'll do videos sometimes and I'll think, that's, maybe I'm not that happy with how I made that. And, I probably could have spent more time on it and whatever. And does amazing work. On another video I could pour my heart and soul into, absolutely kill myself making it. And it runs into the sand. So you never know. And I would say try everything. Just try it, throw everything at it and see, because it very often the thing that you thought would work went nowhere, and the thing you thought least had a least chance of working, suddenly that takes off. So I would try everything. If it didn't work, okay, no loss. Just
I love it.
pick yourself up and go
I
again.
love a good segue. I love a good segue. So I'm gonna try. So we're actually going to go back to the start. You're talking about what works and what doesn't work, and how your process for how you do your videos and stuff like that. Tell me about how it started. Tell me who is Derek Domino, and where did the concept come from?
The channel concept.
Yeah.
Well, it started. I was watching a lot of stuff that stuff like Tim Pool and all that sort of formula, where he'd be covering news and things that were going on in the States, obviously, and not a very fancy setup at the time. It was just him and a basic kit, and he was giving his thoughts on it, and that's kind of the model I started off with. And as I said, where you start is often just the start. It goes on its own after a while. And for a long time, I was just doing it for enjoyment, Martin. I had nobody watching. I think I got 7 views and I was 5 of them. So there was nobody watching me for about a year. I loved the process of it, is what I loved, I wasn't doing it for money or fame, although I did hope maybe someday somebody might watch me. But I was doing it more because obviously I was at a bit of a loose end. Number two, when I did start doing it, even though it was crap and I cringed looking at it, I should actually probably take them down.
No, don't ever.
But I'm a believer in no, leave it all up there, warts and all. And I just enjoyed the actual process of making videos and trying to make them and editing them, which I had to learn all of this absolutely from scratch. I didn't do courses. I didn't have any experience. It was all on the fly. And I did it purely for the joy of doing it. So, as I said, because I enjoyed doing it, it didn't matter that I was getting 10 views. Okay, I'd love to get 10,000 views, but it didn't matter then because I was just doing it as a fun hobby. And even the editing, which I use a program called Premiere Pro, and I had to learn how to cut and splice and put things in, take things out. And I found even that fascinating. And learning about how do you put up captions, how do you put in clips, how do you show, a newspaper article. All of that I had to learn, bit by bit. Every time I'd hit a brick wall, I'd be tapping into YouTube. How do you do? Some lad would show you, in a 2-minute video. And off I went again, having learned how to do that thing. So by the time people did start watching me, I kind of had been doing it for maybe a year, maybe longer, Martin. It could have been a year and a half of just basically shouting at the wind. And then slowly my content started to change. I got better at what I was doing, as in when I started off first, knowing nothing, I was all over the place. I was rambling, I was talking, I was losing. I was just shite, basically. And what I learned over time was I got more disciplined. I got more comfortable doing it. I started to figure out, me as a, this channel guy. And it just kind of came slowly together into what it is now, which is normally a sort of 10, 12-minute video. I try and hit a hot topic that's maybe happening, or perhaps a societal issue that is on my mind that I think will resonate with a lot of people. I watch what the mainstream is doing, and sometimes I'll kick back against how they're, the coverage they're giving. So it just was a gradual process that ended up where I am now. I think 5 years doing it, or maybe it's a bit more than that.
Which is fantastically professional, well put together, humorous, sarcastic, cutting, knowledge sharing show. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you've absolutely honed your skill. I would say I get your sentiment. I wouldn't do what you do in relation to. So I do long form conversation. I'm asking an awful lot more of people because I need you to give up an hour and a half of your life to me. But the joy you get out of the process of putting your show together, that's what I get out of the conversation. I love having these conversations because every single one of these, I learn something new. I'm literally high on endorphins after everyone. I do one of these and record one of these. You know what I mean? Because that was a fantastic conversation. I did not know this. I have 3 books to read. I have, you get, look at this website. I have, you know what I mean? It's just a source of such knowledge. So it's fantastic when you can do something like this, but you actually enjoy it. I don't care about views or monetization or anything. Like the same as yourself. I would like a lot of people to see it. I don't think I have any of my accounts monetized. I don't even know how to do it, but like I said, I'm not concerned with that. Your format though is fantastic because you're so concise that I would imagine your views from start to finish are absolutely massive because you keep it in such a tight package. You're not asking people to give up a huge amount of their time, but you pack huge amounts of information into that. Was that a conscious decision, or is that just what the show kind of morphed into, or as you were kind of honing your skill?
It's how it morphed. It kind of morphed into that because the thing about it is you kind of start all over the place. You kind of have an idea you'd like to do something. You kind of have a general idea what type of thing you want to do, and then as you start to get into it, you start to get a bit better and a bit kind of more tuned in. What happens is you start to get an audience if you're lucky and you stick at it, and most people don't. That's the key. Sticking at it is the key. If you manage to break through that wall where you think, what's the point? Nobody's watching. It's all for nothing. Which wasn't a problem for me because I just enjoyed doing it. I'd do it if nobody watched. I'd still do it. So I just the thing got tighter because you start to build up an audience and then they start to talk to you. Martin, as you know, you get comments, which is great, wonderful. I love reading the comments and replying to them. And then, they tell you stuff and then they say, you should do this, you should try this. And they critique you in a positive way. Now, okay, you'll always get an odd headbanger who'll critique you in a less positive way, but they don't bother me at all. So that also serves to kind of shape you as you're going along because you take this on board, and you start to get a feel for the people who are watching you, who tune in, and what they like and what package they works best for them. Because you try everything, or at least you should. You try it longer, you try it shorter, you try using scripts, you try ad-libbing, and everybody's got their own way of doing it, So that's really, it was a series of trial and error, and I found the things that I liked doing that was most natural for me and that resonated with the people watching me. So it was a kind of a coming together of where my strengths were as a creator, as a broadcaster, if you like, and what the people watching me, what they wanted to watch, as in how they wanted the story packaged. Like they didn't want me to ramble on for 30 minutes. That's not my thing. I have, so I sensed that, well, the people who are watching me, they've probably seen what RTE said. They've probably read the Irish Times or the Independent, so they probably have an idea, or maybe they don't know about the story at all. So what they want from me is the real take, the old school take, the take from the lad who's not bought by anybody. He's not in anyone's pocket. He's just which is what I do. I go as far as I can to the actual source of what happened, either the raw footage, people commenting who were there, and I try and divine that down into a coherent, okay, I think I have a handle on what actually happened there. And very, very often, as you know, it will be completely different than what the segment on the 6-1 News, totally different. So that I found that there was a real hunger for that with Irish people, and not only Irish people, but Irish diaspora, people in the UK. It's a massive audience for this type of thing. Just truth. old school truth, which hasn't been filtered, which has no, no chip on your shoulder, no DEI boxes to tick. Just look, as far as old school journalism, and I'm not a journalist, I don't class myself as that, but I do journalism, if you like, as in I try to get to the absolute bedrock of the story and then tell people what I think went on there. And that became, as I said, what I do mostly. Now, I also do, whenever I think of an idea, parodies and sketches and, sort of pretending to be the minister of this and that. Again, it's old Hall's Pictorial Weekly type stuff.
Yeah.
And again, that plays to the people who watch me. They enjoy that. I find it breaks up because you can't do heavy stuff every day, Mark.
I love your fun ones because they pop up randomly.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason to them. They're just there, and you just leave with a smile on your face because you're kind of going, oh, Derek, okay, what's And I'm not a huge YouTube user. I put my stuff out on YouTube, but I don't spend a lot of time. X is my weapon of choice. It always has been my weapon of choice since I think about 2012 or even before that, 2006 maybe, I don't know. But it's just been my platform that I enjoy using, so that's where I spend most of my time. But I have Facebook and I don't use Instagram and like that. But I love that X and you're there now on Facebook because you weren't always, or no. you weren't in my algorithm But it's great now that I get to see your stuff on X, and you've a significant following in X terms and in Facebook terms. In relation to using that, so to speak, different organizations and different people have spoken about alternative media. Now, you're never going to get a TV license in this country, a right to broadcast. You're never getting that. You most likely are never getting a radio license in this country. I know it's been looked into. Is there scope for an actual 24/7 or even just a 12-hour old school online RTE type program where you just give entertainment, the alternate news, a little bit of fun, and then we'll play the national anthem at 11:30 or something to that effect? There's definitely the talent out there. There's definitely the content creators out there. But do you think it would work as a non-profit? You're not going to get many advertisers. You're not going to get much income from it. It would be a passion project, and people would have to put huge amounts of time into it. Is there scope for something in a country as small as ours with a population so small? Is it worth the endeavor?
I would say it is, Martin. You have a few issues there. As you say, there is the talent, no question. The talent is around. There's no shortage of that. The other problem then is time. Because most people have day jobs.
Yeah.
And plus maybe they're running a channel like me. I operate my channel, which takes a good deal of time. I try to put out at least one video every day, which takes. Because making the video is one thing. You have to resource it. You have to check it. You have to make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you even switch on the camera. And then, of course, you have to edit the thing because, what I do has to be edited. I spend more time editing a 10 or 12-minute video than I do making it. The editing, it's all in the edit. It's because that's how it's tight. Otherwise, and it does make a difference, because...
Oh, huge, yeah.
But it takes time. And you have to have at least a basic knowledge of how to edit. Now, I don't consider myself an editor. I know what I need to know for what I do, but I couldn't. Like my Spielberg isn't going to be looking for me anytime soon, but I can at least do my videos. So, yes, a sort of a GB News type thing. Is that kind of where you're going with that? A Talk TV type thing?
Not. No, I'd like the news just to be at 3:00, 6:00, 9:00, and have a bit of fun in between. Old RTE, like, you know what I mean? Like I watch a lot of people. A lot of them are beardy like myself that do huge amounts of historical stuff. They travel up and down the length and breadth of the country and just make videos on old henges and old forts and talk about the fairies and all that kind of stuff. And all of the information is out there. All of the creators are out there, but it's all spread across. You know what I mean? And if you don't accidentally come across this person or you don't know them because they're from your area, you're missing out on it. I spend a huge amount. I spoke to Dr. Owen Lenihan a few months back, and we spoke for another 3 hours after we'd finished the recording. I think it must have been 2:00 in the morning when we finished up, and he was talking about his new book and he where he was going with it. And I was just there. I remember all these stories. I remember the teen. I remember Niall and the Nine Hostages. I remember all our folklore. Every single bit of that is in me. And then I started looking on YouTube. There are hundreds of people out there creating all of this content that you could mash it into kind of an ear to the ground program, so to speak. You know what I mean? For our history. And then there are people like, I give shout out to Orla Dunham. She goes around and visits businesses and makes little TikToks of people's businesses promoting local things like that. There's other people doing that. You could mash that into kind of one episodic thing, and so on and so forth. It'd be, you know what I mean? And it'd be such a good thing to give to, especially people who are a little bit more elderly and a little bit more housebound, and they do rely on the screen in the corner for their news, that you can give them something. Well, actually turn that one off and turn this one on, and I guarantee you're going to like it. And yeah, the news is going to be a little bit harsher because it's a little bit more realistic, but we're going to throw in a bit of fun as well, you know what I mean? And we're going to throw in a few characters, and there's comedians in our ranks, there are entertainers in our, you know what I mean? I just think it'd be a fantastic idea. Again, you need funding, you need people. I know all of the pitfalls.
Yeah,
it would be fantastic.
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great idea if it could be in some way put together, as you say. If you could get all those strands to somehow kind of, mesh together. There's certainly no shortage of creators, no shortage of talent, no shortage of content, and I think a lot of people. I hear this a lot. From mostly from family, that they really can't watch RTE anymore. It's just reruns. It's just crap. Yeah. It's just crap, and it's they're pumping out a lot of slop now. And if even older people are noticing this, Martin, I think RTE's in trouble, because I don't think anybody young watches them.
They're not in trouble. The state will bail them out. And to be honest with you now, hang on. There's something fantastic coming up now very, very shortly. The Owl Rose of Tralee is going to be on. Yeah. So,
the only thing that today,
the only thing that tops that is Eurovision. It's
Well, we all know the Rose of Tralee is changing. It is changing.
Absolutely. Huh?
I wonder who'll win this year.
The Black Rose. Yeah.
I have a fiver on that one. I'm not a betting man, but I think that's worth a fiver.
Yeah, you know what? Just to kind of keep us on our toes, they might let her finish second or something like that.
If they were smart, the smart play there is second place. Yeah, good enough to make a point, but don't give us any ammunition.
Oh my God! Hey, listen, imagine what Dr. Ribena there would say if she finished second. Huh? The Rose of Tralee is racist now.
I think I could write that script, and I wouldn't be far wrong. She is not. She does not hide her light under a bushel. That woman.
Yeah, it's. Is it bait? Is it intentional to draw? We'll say the less patient of us out into doing silly things, so laws can be strangled and tightened and.
Yeah, well, look, as I said, there's some very clever people, behind the scenes. They're not idiots. Never think of them as idiots, because they're not. They're very clever, extremely clever. And plus, as I said, they have a lot of this manipulation comes from advertising, as you know. They picked all the best brains out of advertising, and basically hired them, because that was the cutting edge of messaging, propaganda, if you want to use old money, messaging and narrative creation. That's all advertising stuff. Those, advertising got to such a level. It went from, the Goebbels days of banging the thing and shouting into a ropey microphone to, that was the caveman's cudgel. That was Captain Caveman's club. Now, messaging or propaganda, that's a surgeon's scalpel. That's keyhole surgery now, and that is because the boffins in advertising got so tuned in to every nuanced facet of the human mind that those guys were all just lifted and put into government.
There's a
That's the
terrible,
guy.
there's a terrible man who, I presume he still works for the WEF. They call him the Prophet, and there's a video of him talking about hacking humanity.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
And that's actually what they've done, and people don't realize that we gave them all our data. Every time that you gave your email address or gave data or information, we gave so much away, and it allowed them to peek into our souls. And people don't realize this, that how well they actually know us, and how well they again, this is why I stopped consuming, because no, you don't know me, and I'm changing and I'm adapting, and whatever you have on file or whatever you think you can sell me, you should see what comes up on my algorithms of what the advertisers think I want. You can game the system. This is the other thing people don't realize. You can curate your life. You can also curate your online life. You don't have to be. There's nothing wrong with playing a character. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, because you can be X in public, but you can be that guy in the smoky room counteracting their guys in their their room is going to be bright lit, fucking covered in rainbow flags. It's a different room, but it's still a think tank. So we need to get smarter in relation to how we fight back. And again, part of these conversations are actually part and parcel of it. You know what I mean? People sometimes say, "Well, you give too much away." No, I don't. You know, it's literally show what you want to show, and you know, like I said, I look over here as I do what I'm doing over there.
Well, I think once you know the game is afoot, you're halfway there, because most people don't know there's even a game on. You know, so at least if you know there's a game on and you're part of it, then okay, you can at least get your tackles.
What's your thoughts on a friend of mine came up with a concept saying that the reason nationalism, I'm going to use that broad term because that covers an awful lot. And I'm a libertarian. That's what I am. I don't want any government. I just want to be left alone. That is in essence what I am. But I see benefits to capitalism. I see benefits to certain types of socialism, not communist socialism or Marxist socialism, but just basically having a safety net for people who can't, so to speak. I see benefits to lots of other philosophies, and I pick the best out of them. And I've been involved in politics, and I've wrote policy using all the best of those elements. But I suppose the politics touches every part of our life, so I can't ignore it, and I also can't rebuild society, and I can't tear everything down. And I'm only one human, and you're only one human. How do you shift the mood of a nation collectively without actually telling people what to do?
Well, that's it's a big question. I mean, in terms of people like us, you know, we would be similar on the same sort of end of the spectrum, if you like. I don't think I'd be a libertarian as such, but I'd be certainly, you know, on your wavelength in many ways. But the way I kind of class it is people with common sense and crazy people. And if you have common sense people, they'll usually figure out problems, you know, because a lot of problems are common sense. There's usually a pretty easy solution if you're just prepared to do it. The problem is they know a lot of the solutions, but they don't do them. They can't do them, or they won't do them. And the common sense people have been banished from the kingdom, if you like. We are now the partisans in the hills, Martin. The battle's over. You know, there's no war. The wars, we didn't know it was on. That's why we lost. We didn't show up because we didn't know there was a battle on. So we are now fighting very much a rear guard action. We are the partisans in the hill, taking our little pot shots. And the question is, how do you stop being how do you get from the mountains, from the hills, back into running things again? And that's a big ask. It's not impossible. It has been done, but it is a very, very big ask. And what we're doing now is, I suppose, all that we can do, which is do each of us in our own way, our own little bit. I do my bit, you do your bit. We have our own things going on. We try and as best we can with the talents we have to try and reach people, to try and give people an understanding of what's actually going on, because most people, I think, still don't understand what's going on, and they don't understand why what they're seeing every day is changing so radically. So we are doing our little bit, but it's not enough to overhaul a society. Unfortunately, we just don't have, at least for now, we don't have the tools, we don't have the money, and with the way technology has taken over so much of our life, we're all carrying these phones now. Everybody's on screens. Everybody's got a laptop or an iPad or something. Technology is and it's all, of course, monitoring us. As you said, it's listening to us, it's watching us, it knows what products we want to buy, and it's serving us ads. So there's a level of control there which is unprecedented in the human race. So, even trying to get things together or mobilize people or get groups together or like-minded people together in order to try and create a momentum, even that is hugely problematic, because the people who don't want you to do that, again, have all the tools, they have all the toys, and they're not afraid to use them, Martin, because the left is. When does the left go too far? Jordan Peterson said that, probably other people. When does the left never goes too far? When does the left go too far? Who knows? It always ends up in gulags at some point, as far as I can see.
I always say it's a circle. It doesn't matter how far left or right you go. Yeah, you end up with starvation, gulags, mass murder, etc. It doesn't matter. But to combat, and again, you don't need to comment on this. This is just kind of my own meandering thought. I think we have to go to a very, very dark place, and I think we have to embrace some darker ideology to combat what is happening. And again, I'm talking in survival terms. And I also believe we have to sacrifice an entire generation, which would be my children's generation. We can't fix the housing crisis. We can't fix immigration. We can't in their, we'll say, prime years, their 20s to their 40s. But by Christ, we can make them angry, and we can point them in a direction, and we can give them tasks. And if necessary, we can give them uniforms. We can give them tools. We can give them ideas. We can give them, is that a morally right thing to do? No, it's not. But as I said, my overriding concern is, is my genetics still here in 1,000 years' time? That are my people still here in 1,000 years' time? So yeah, I would be willing to sacrifice one generation. Is that too far? Is that too harsh? Is it too extreme, so to speak?
Well, it is a pretty extreme position. There's no question of that. But I would say, I would put it this way. I don't think we're going to have a choice, Martin, to be honest. I don't think it's going to even be somebody making a decision. I think we're going to end up there. Not by choice. Nobody wants that. Nobody would willingly want to go down that road, or ask to go down that road, or to be even on that road. But I think because we have such crazy, misguided, dysfunctional leadership, if you want to even call it leadership, dysfunctional political landscape, and the people in it, and they have managed to fortify this dysfunctional political system. It's really fortified so as to not let anybody else in. If you're not part of, if your name's not on the list, you don't get in. And they've really done everything to make sure that was walled off, to not let. So it can't change. That's what I said about voting. I don't think voting would change anything. The only thing I would make it worse. If you could imagine it being worse, if the Sinn Féin get in and some ragtag of the lunatics, the absolute screwballs get in, then good night. Absolutely, that will just push us way off the cliffs of Moher there. So, to your point about the dark times, like if you read history, and I'm not a history buff, but I do like history. I do enjoy learning history and reading history and watching things that are historic. So many you see so many examples of societies that mirror where we're at now. And this is back thousands of years ago, maybe. They got decadent, they got overconfident. All these certain traits, societal traits, manifested in this late stage. And it always ended in tears, Martin. And, that's not me wishing for that or wanting that. That's me just simply looking at, because humans are still humans.
Patterns are patterns. Yeah, they exist. Yeah, you can see them. Yeah.
We as a species haven't changed. We haven't grown an extra arm. We're still the same basic human beings that we were 10,000 years ago, with the same urges and the same inklings, the same ideas, the same passions.
Is that the problem, that technology has? Okay, if you think about it, less than 50 years ago, there were still houses in rural Ireland that didn't have, maybe they might have had one light bulb in the house, and the toilet might have been still outside. And that's not an exaggeration. That's a fact, because I personally know of one. We haven't changed in 10,000 years, but everything about our lives and who we are, technology essentially, you know what I mean? In the last 100 years, what humans have created. Is everybody just gone mad because this cannot keep up with this? The amount of information we're bombarded with, the amount of, I struggle to read now, and I do read books from time to time, but I struggle to read because it's not in a Twitter-sized information package. And I find that I have to put down a book after a very, very short amount of time and then come back to it, and I'm taking it in the same way I'm taking in my Twitter feed. Is exiting technology, is exiting all of this a cure, or is that running away?
I don't think we could do it now. I think it's too far gone. The only way I think that could happen, or might happen, is if AI runs amok, which they're talking about now increasingly. And I think that's something we should be cognizant of, because AI is now getting to such a level that we're knocking on the door of it just running amok. It's already escaping labs and doing all kinds of weird stuff.
I saw that about the one that got out of its sandbox, and I saw another one that basically ordered itself a robot so it could walk around the place. Do they show us all the movies, the Terminator movies, the sci-fi movies, and all this stuff? Are they using media all the time to show us so many dystopian type movies where, zombie movies and all this kind of stuff? Do the powers that be, because they love their symbolism, well, some of them do, are they showing us our future all the time and we're just not clued in enough to see it? That a movie will normalize something that is actually now happening, and you kind of go, oh yeah, I saw that in the movie, and you're not that concerned about it. Nobody seems scared that AI potentially could decide to wipe us off the planet if it gets it into its head that we're a threat to it, or that, humans are, dogs are better than humans, let's get rid of all the humans. Nobody's worried about that because they've seen it in so many movies. Is that a form of mind control? Is it are our senses constantly being dumbed down and we don't even realize it, that there's narrative to everything?
Yeah, well, Hollywood was used to put propaganda into people's heads for as long as Hollywood was around. I mean, they were that was part of their job, as far as I can see. And every country did the same. You look at the Soviet era films, Stalin. I think Stalin even starred in a couple himself. He was putting his message out. So it was always seen as, let's get an idea floated out there. Now, of course, you can go down the tinfoil hat route and you can get the CIA in there and all that sort of stuff if you want. But no, it was always a very powerful tool. And yes, obviously, what better way to sell an idea to the public than stick it on, some movie, the Terminator or whatever, or as they do now at the Nudge Unit, stick it in EastEnders or stick it on Fair City, as they do here. That's how they get ideas that, the people wouldn't have organically come to. Now, all of a sudden, some character in Fair City's talking about it or doing it, and all of a sudden it's normal.
What was that far right guy? Oh, David or Darryl? I don't know. Oh, lads. Oh my
Did that
God.
not backfire, Martin? Did he not
Oh,
get?
massive! Yeah, I think it did. But sure, like that. I haven't seen that thing in years. I don't. There's no terrestrial television in any of the. There's just no there's no terrestrial television anywhere I live. I watch content online like yours and people I follow and stuff like that. I don't consume much of the odd side. I'm a bit of a nerd. I like a bit of sci-fi. I like Star Trek and stuff like that. So I'll watch that kind of a stuff. But outside of that, I don't watch soaps or anything RTE creates because I found better on YouTube. It's as simple as that. I
Well,
found better produced.
yeah.
One
Well,
person, yeah.
I mean, going back to your point about the dark times, the dark times could come from a number of different directions. And as I said, nobody wants it, but I think we're going to end up there because I don't see how we can't. Because I don't think we have any magic beans that the Romans or the Etruscans or any of the other civilizations you want to go down. I don't think we're still a society that has, in my opinion, has reached the end. It's just got to the end. We've run out of ideas. We've fallen into all the same traps that many previous societies fell into. I think we've fallen into most of them, if not all of them. And they all foundered. And often what happened was that some less advanced, more barbaric society just essentially rocked in and took all their stuff and enslaved them. Or worse, killed them and enslaved them. That's usually how these things ended up. And I think we're seeing a bit of that here with the influxes, which is a massive, which is probably the issue of the day. You are seeing people from totally different cultures. I would say less developed cultures, maybe even barbaric cultures and brutal cultures with some of the things they believe.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they are flooding in here.
I'd be much harsher than you. I'm no problem being racist. I'm Irish, and we were always racist. It used to be funny. We used to have great times, and even the one black lad in the town used to find it funny because he was sound. Racism now for me is necessary because I have to defend myself and my lineage. Therefore, I have no problem in saying some sub-Saharan Africans with the IQ below 70 are not the same as me. They can contribute nothing to my society but harm. I don't want them here. Simple as that. I can say the same about religions I don't agree with. I don't care what you practice in your own country. It's your business. I would never go to your house and tell you what to do. Get out of mine. And not being smart, I'd send a huge amount of our own population with them because I do not class the traitors as Irish. Micheál Martin once talked about mongrels. I actually believe there is a mongrel class in Ireland that is not the same as us. They're not. They wouldn't be able to do. I have this thing I talk about. It's called genetic memory. If they truly were us, their blood would not allow them to do what they're doing. Their will to survive and their connection to the land and connection to the old gods and their Christian moral compass would not allow them to destroy their own people. Therefore, I do not class them as the same as me. They may have some Irish blood in them, but they're not my people. And yeah, people may say that's harsh, unfair. I don't care. I don't care. I'm gone beyond that. I'm geared up for the dark times. I've been preparing for this for a number of years. I am okay. Am I going to go first? No. that's self-preservation. Absolutely not. And one person going off isn't going to solve anything anyway. All you're going to do is give them ammunition. But I'm quite happy to, and I'm going to be doing this and talking about this. I'm going to start using some very, very dark tactics in relation to capturing the minds of our youth and actually showing them that no, this is wrong and this is right, but in the most horrible, nasty way possible. I'm going to, and I don't mind sharing my plans. I'm going to create a generation that hates, and I mean hates with a passion, government, traitors, wokeism, communism, in all its forms, any form of it. Islam, I don't mind saying it. I don't want it here. It's my country. I don't want it here. If there's a Muslim who wants to pray privately in his own house and he's a good human, no problem with that whatsoever. That's grand. You worship whatever you want to worship in the confines of your own home. No mosques, no call to prayer, no nothing. It's just I won't accept it, and nor should anybody else, because we don't go to their countries. We don't do it to them because if we did, they'd kill us. So we need to get a little bit like that. I'm always conscious of the time because I'm worried about taking up too much of your time and too much of the viewers' time. But I went on a rant, and I always like to finish on a positive. So I'm gonna try you the most. I've just went on my absolutely rant.
On a positive, how are your tomatoes doing this year? You getting a good crop?
The growth is bad this year.
Is it?
Where I was living, I'm not there anymore. So my potatoes and all that that's all gone. There's wild potatoes growing everywhere, but not for consumption. But down where I live, the stuff we planted with my parents, stuff like that, very poor this year. Very, very poor, which is worrying. So we're going to have to go back to growing everything in tunnels, which means we need to find space and just grow everything inside. There's something in the air that's affecting growth, and that, there's some. Yeah, it's concerning. It's concerning. So anybody who's getting into gardening, just put plastic over it. I know plastic isn't great either, but the tunnels aren't that expensive. Small ones, you can actually. You can even do hydroponics in tunnels as well. You can have your big stuff on the ground. You can do your salads and stuff like that. I haven't been hunting in a very, very long time. I'm almost afraid to open the gun safe and see what rust and cobwebs are on it. But that's another thing I want to do. I'd like to do some videos in relation to that, in relation to, if things do get bad, when are you going to eat? And there are some people who do stuff like that, but more skills.
But we used to. This is all old knowledge, and I remember, as a boy, being taken fishing and hunting. Mm-hmm. That was not any great. That was just great. It was wonderful. Loved it.
The best thing is the young fellas when you caught your first trout, you got to bring it home in a matter of hours.
Yeah,
head off, tail off, gutted on the pan, bit of butter, nom nom nom. Like it was absolutely fantastic.
The young generation don't know what they're missing out. They really don't.
Yeah. And the gallivant, the mess, like you'd be missing you just go off in the morning. You began. Like, hunger was the only thing that brought you home. That was it. It was just,
and your mother would tell you, "Don't come back before tea time. Don't come back," because you'd be wanting to get stuff done, and she didn't want you under her feet, annoying her. Brilliant.
Hideouts and. Just you had to make your own fun. You know what I mean? That was a great thing. My kids, they got a small bit of it, a little bit of it, but nothing compared to what I did. Like it was we also mollycoddled them too much, and we got caught up in the keeping up with the Joneses and the, you know what I mean? Oh, your child can't be dirty. Your child can't. We used scabs on the knees. Do you remember scabs on the knees? Most kids went through it because we all wore shorts. Your two knees would just be two big crusted scabs, and every child was.
Do you remember the iodine? Fucking red stuff. What was even that? What was it supposed to do for you?
It's a barrier. It's actually a barrier against germs.
Is it?
And it's actually got massive antiviral properties as well. So it does actually work. Yeah.
Well, you could see that from the moon.
But like if. Nowadays, if a child had a cut in his knee, the neighbours would be calling social services on you, like, you know what I mean? Oh God, we lost so much. We lost so much, but shit, we're supposed to be finishing on a positive.
Well, we touched on gardening and nostalgia. How's that for a finish?
That's very good, Derek. I really appreciate you giving me your time.
No problem.
It's fantastic, and like I said, they're just conversations. They're nothing else, and I really, really enjoyed that one. We must. I always say to everybody, we'll do it again if you don't mind, because I like to just check in with people. I think I've a big enough catalog now to actually go back to the start and start talking to people again and see how it goes. Thank you very much for your time. When I put this out, I'm going to stick all your links in for your YouTube, your X, and stuff like that, because everybody. People might be seeing you, or they might know there's a big, huge back catalogue. Go back and watch the first episode.
Don't. Do not. I'm going to have to put a warning on those. Health warning.
Derek, thank you very much. You can stay in the studio there for just for a second. I'm going to drop you down, and I'll talk to you in just 1 second. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. I love doing this. This is great fun. We'll see you all in the next one.